Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the DCL Duo podcast, brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And Sam, I'm taking a stand on the reviews. I went back, I listened, I was unable to untangle this web we have woven of reviews, and so I'm just going to start with a review from BP Gentry from a year ago.
No, that's Beth.
Yes, it is Beth Gentry. Thank you, Beth. And I'm just going to put a plug in here. If for some reason you think, you know what, I think the Duo skipped my review and I don't like them for it, just email us and let me know, and I will go back and find your review. Just let me know the username for the review, and I will go back and find it, and we will make sure it gets read. But for now, we're starting here. BP Gentry, who writes 5 stars for the Duo! The DCL Duo is the gold standard in Disney podcasting. They have an amazing variety of guests and topics and top-notch production. I love hearing about all the cruises I've never gotten to do and taking notes for future trips. Listening to the new episodes is always one of the highlights of my week. Well, Beth, that is just an exceedingly nice review from you. We've actually I want to say one thing, because we've been on a couple of shows where people are like, they're the best. They're like we're
gold
just
standard.
People.
I love that.
Yeah, the gold standard, as Beth articulated. I think we were on with Paul Thornton. His episode should have come out by the time this releases, and he was like, "Oh, they're the world class." And like, we appreciate it, but we're just two people who invested in some microphones.
Just weirdos
that's how
with
I look at the world. That's how I look at the world. So anyway, thank you, Beth, for that wonderful review. We really appreciate it. Sam, over to you to introduce our fun guest. And I'm actually pretty excited about this topic, because we get a lot of feedback around, folks want to understand what cruising is like for families. So this is
absolutely super excited to welcome first-time guest, but not first-time cruiser to the show, Becky. Welcome to the show, Becky.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
very exciting to be on.
Oh, nice. Love that. Thank you for volunteering to come on the show. I always thank people. We always say, like, if it was just the two of us, two weirdos with microphones, at least we have other people that we can, talk to on the podcast. But let's start where we always like to start before we dive into cruising with kids. And we're going to talk about cruising with kids. We're going to do a little bit of compare contrast cruising on Disney Cruise Line, and you have a lot of experience on Norwegian Cruise Line, so we're going to talk about that as well. But before we dive into that show topic, we got to get your Disney credentials and, of course, your cruising creds.
So I did a lot of Disney parks, mostly Disney World, really, as a kid. So I was lucky enough to go 3 times, and then I think I went in college, and then I took my 12-year-old sister one time. So did that, and then once I had a daughter, we went back, and I've taken her pretty much every year. And then we decided to do first Disney cruise in 2023 in September, I believe it was.
Nice. And how many have you done now?
So 3 Disney cruises, and then I have 7 Norwegian cruises.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of experience on Norwegian. When did you start sailing on Norwegian Cruise Line?
So I took my first one in 2010. It was a 3-day. And I didn't really fall in love with cruising at that point. It was nice. I enjoyed it. But it was a 3-day, and it was cold. It was in February, I think it was. So not as nice. Because the next cruise I took was in 2015. So it was a 5-year gap. And that time I was with my now husband. And so I love that one. And then I just kept going back more often. The next one was 2020, right before the COVID shutdown. Luckily was able to do that right after I had my daughter. So she was 7 months old. And
wow. She was just a baby most cruise lines, it's 6 months is sort of the minimum that you can be. In fact, certain sailings, it's a year if you're doing like a Panama Canal or something like that. But wow. So she's been sailing since she was real little. How old is your daughter now?
She's 5.
Oh my goodness. So
we got married, actually, I've missed one. I think we got married in 2018 on a Norwegian cruise. And then as soon as I can get back in 2020 with the 7-month-old. So she was over the 6-month mark.
So you caught the bug, but you caught the bug on Norwegian Cruise Line. That's super interesting. Now, she started at 7 months. She's been sailing through the age of 5. So how many cruises has your daughter been on then?
She's been on 3 Norwegian and 3 Disney, I think, at this point, if I'm calculating that correctly.
Wow. That's some pretty good creds for that little.
Yeah, she thinks vacations are just cruises. That's the standard.
Well, let's dive in and talk about, the two cruise lines that you guys have chosen, obviously, to sail on, Norwegian and Disney. And, how did you took a 3-night cruise, you said, on Norwegian. Is that what sort of led you into cruising on Norwegian as opposed to some other cruise line?
Yeah, we did Norwegian because it has the specialty dining is you can get basically when you do a cruise, they throw in some nights specialty dining. It's changed over the years. So I don't remember when it was when I first started, but it was all included. And so that the food was the draw there. And then they also have a thermal suite that's really nice. And so that was also another draw.
Awesome.
And then, of course, with no kids, we didn't have to worry about the kids' clothes.
Yeah, yeah. And then you decided to get married on a Norwegian cruise ship. How did that kind of come about? Like, did you consider a land-based wedding? Like, there's not a ton of people who have sailed on or have gotten married on cruise ships. It's not the most common, but curious how that came about.
Yeah, so we briefly considered land-based, and then I got overwhelmed with all the choices. And both my family's in Massachusetts and my husband's family's from Florida. So we were going to have to fly people to places anyways. So then we decided cruise ship. My friend got married on the beach and I wanted something near the water, but I didn't want to replicate that. So the cruise was just like the perfect in between. And then Norwegian was one of the few cruises that actually lets you get legally married on the cruise ship. And so, because I looked at a lot of them, and I think even Disney, and I think there were like 2 choices to get legally married on a cruise ship.
Yeah. I think Disney's is you're not actually legally married by like the captain or whoever. It's you get the ceremony.
You have to get on with a marriage license, yeah, and then have been married, and then the captain's just sort of it's like a vow renewal. See, basically, yeah.
But that means like your wedding, the official or the legal date and your ceremonial date are 2 different dates if you're doing on a lot of cruise lines that kind of a wedding. But that's pretty cool on NCL that it was a legal wedding. So does that mean you got married by the captain?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and it has a location is the middle of the water for where I got married, so it's pretty awesome.
I want to make sure we talk about it because you've experienced it. How many cruises have your kids been on?
Just one kid, Brian, and she's been on now. You said,
I think it's 6.
And how many between Disney and Norwegian? Like how many with?
So 3. She's been on all 3 of the Disney cruises, and then she's been on the 3 of the Norwegian cruises.
Okay, and so since your first cruise with her was on Norwegian. Like, how old was she for that first cruise?
7 months.
7 months. Okay. When does she get to kids club age? Has she been on like a Norwegian cruise and had to do like a kids club kind of situation?
Yeah. So we've done 2 cruises where she's been in the kids club last year, or I guess it'll be the year before. So that was 2023 December. We did a 5-day to Bermuda. And then that was the contrast between the kids club during that trip and the last one we just did in December was very different because for some reason the kids club was mobbed. And so we had trouble getting her into the kids club the one before, but this past time was actually, we didn't have no problems.
Right.
Oh, so they like reached capacity, at Norwegian. Were there certain times of day that were more difficult or easier?
Yeah. The one that was difficult was because we were stuck at sea. We were supposed to go to Bermuda, but then it was too nasty weather and we weren't able to dock. And so we did 5 days circling the Atlantic. And I think people were desperate to do things with their kids. So they equated a little bit of backup in the kids club.
Yeah. Let me back up to when she was 7 months old and you went on Norwegian, like did they have, so Disney has the nursery. Did Norwegian have something similar and what was that setup like?
Yeah, so when she was 7 months, they did have a nursery. It was only on one ship, which is the ship that we went on. And we did do drop off a couple times around dinner time, and it was great. There were certain things that they couldn't do. It might have been diaper changing, but I've heard that it's no longer being offered. So that's an unfortunate thing. And so you have to be 3, I think, on Norwegian to get to the kids clubs.
Oh, so there is no nursery anymore at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Do they have any kind of babysitting or anything, any offering for anybody under age 3? Or is it just if you're under age 3, you're with your parents?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Maybe others can correct me, but as far as I know, they got rid of that service during COVID, and then they didn't bring it back.
Wow. That's kind of crazy. Okay, so now she's at age 3, done kids club. Tell us what that experience is like on Norwegian specifically.
Yeah, so the kids clubs, they do a lot of activities. There's face painting at least 3 times during our cruise. I think she also there's Mario Kart and Nintendo games. And so I think she spent a lot of time doing that. The actual kids club is just like big open spaces. So I think it's a lot more activities or the gaming rather than Disney, which is I think there's a lot more variety.
Yeah. Now, how does the sort of registration process work? Let's do like an apples to apples comparison, right? So with Disney Cruise Line, you can do some pre-registration, but then when you go on the ship, you actually go to the kids club and make sure they've got all the information right. You get the kids club band so that you can check them in and out. And of course, you let the cast members know of any sort of special requests or issues that your kid might have. How does it work on Norwegian?
Yeah, so it's pretty similar. They had tables set up inside the kids club, and then they take all the parents to and talk to them individually as they sign them up. But they're asking the same kind of things. They don't get a magic band, obviously, but they get it's kind of like just a plastic wristband type thing. And then they're supposed to wear that the entire cruise. So you just have to get it the first time you go into the kids club.
Gotcha. And then what about like drop off and pick up like times? Like what are their hours similar to what we see on Disney Cruise Line, which is, typically open till midnight. And of course they open pretty early in the morning. I want to say maybe like 7 a.m. for Disney Kids Clubs, although they often have open house hours, sort of at times in the middle of the day, in particular on port days in the morning. What's sort of the offering? I know from, at least with Royal Caribbean, like they kind of shut down during meal times. And so I'm curious about on NCL, what the sort of availability is as far as, throughout the day.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Royal. That's where Disney really hits it out of the park with the basically being open all day. But yeah, it's 9 to 12, 2 to 5, I think. And am I getting that right? And then I think it opens back up at 7. And then I think it's like 7 to 10. And then you pay extra for 10 to 12.
Oh, wow. It's like identical to Royal then, because the hours seem either identical or almost identical. And then the paying after 10, from 10 to midnight, basically, we had the same thing with Royal, because we did let Nathan go to the kids club, and stay there past 10. And you had to pay, I can't remember if it was like $10 an hour maybe, but like you could pay by the half hour if let's say he stayed till like 10:25, you only paid for a half hour. You didn't pay, from 10 to 11. Was that similar?
So we didn't use the after hours because she's 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tried to keep her on schedule. It wasn't always successful, but we tried to pick her up by 9. But yeah, I think it was a similar price if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just to go back for a second, so I'm looking at Norwegian's site, and I can confirm they don't mention anything. Obviously, if you do a search, there's the mention of the Encore had it, or the Entourage. One of the Norwegian ships did have a Guppies nursery, but to your point, it now is just Guppies Open Play, and it says for the littlest cruisers, Guppies Open Play offers a play space for parents to interact with their infants, babies, toddlers, 6 months to 3 years old, or children in diapers. It does, interestingly enough, though, I think this is a little bit different from Disney. It does appear like you can have kids in the youth programs at age 3 who still require like diaper changes, which is a big difference from DCL. I'm going to read that a little bit more closely here as we keep talking, but that's different. And I suspect the parent has to come back and do
Well, so here's the thing. This is something people should know on DCL, because I think a lot of people don't know this, or and I want to put this out there and say the caveat is you might get different answers from different cast members on this, but I have heard for people who have children that are 3 and older, often, children who are even like 5 or 6 with like developmental disabilities who are still diapering, they will often make exceptions to the policy to let those kids come into the kids club. But what they will require, and I'm talking about on DCL, but what they will require is that a parent come and check on the child every 45 minutes, every hour, something like that, to check on whether or not they need a diaper change so that they're not walking around in a soiled diaper for a longer period of time. And of course, then you have to check them out and check them back in for that.
Well, that's because, Norwegian says it on their website. Disney says it on theirs. They can't help the kids in the bath. Like that just poses way too many risks for adults interacting with children in that way that aren't their parents. So yeah. It's totally understandable why they have that rule. So yeah, but interesting that Norwegian has no nursery offering. How did your daughter find the kids club? Like, so on Royal, it's like basically maybe mildly themed daycare spaces with a bunch of activities that are pretty structured that the kids kind of do. Was it that way on Norwegian?
Yeah, I think it's probably very similar. We're going to go on Royal in June, so I'll be able to directly compare. But yeah.
What was the report back from going? Did she enjoy going to the kids club? Did she want to go to the kids club, or what was the report back off of those initial sailings on Norwegian?
Yeah, so she loved going to the kids club. And she pretty much asked to go all the time. She doesn't like to make it through the entire dinner. So sometimes we would start dinner, and then when the kids club opened, we had someone bring her up. And she was like, yeah, bye. And she's really easy to make friends. She'll just go up to people and ask them to be her friend. So we've been very lucky in that sense. Nice. But I think she really liked to play Mario Kart. I think that was really what the draw was.
Yeah.
Sounds not too dissimilar from a kid we know.
She's not alone. What other kinds of services did they have for kids on board, if any? If you think about Disney, you think about kind of that whole experience end to end for kids, everything from the servers like cutting up their steak for them and making little Mickey ketchups on their plates and, that kind of stuff. But like there's kind of an end-to-end offering on Disney for kids. Like what did you find on Norwegian beyond kind of the club spaces? Yeah,
there wasn't too much more besides the standard. So there was a splash pad. There were slides. They had 2 pools back there in the kind of family spaces. So there's a lot of pool space. And she spent like hours in the splash pad, and it was placed so there was like some chairs that to the side. So we just like sat there while she played for over 2 hours, and it was really nice.
That is really nice. That's a nice way to relax, just kind of sitting on the pool deck. What about, do they have like mini golf or any of the other sort of deck activities for kids?
I'm not sure if they still have the mini golf. They did at one point. They have each of the ships have different things. This one had kind of a ropes course, but we didn't do because she wasn't quite the right age, I think, for it.
Yeah. She's probably not tall enough for it, frankly. They probably have an age and height requirement for a lot of those kinds of things.
Yeah, we didn't actually look into it, so I don't remember if there was actual requirement. Yeah. I just didn't want to go up on the ropes course.
What about like onboard activities? Obviously, when we think about Disney Cruise Line, we think about, family karaoke and family trivia and towel folding and, things that are and crafts, right? All these things that are open, some of which are actually geared towards younger kids, not the trivia, but some of the other ones. But a lot of family game shows are a good example. But, there are obviously, ones that are not geared towards kids. But I'm curious on NCL what kinds of offerings they had for, for families to participate, particularly with young kids.
Yeah, they have some trivia, and they do crafts. They tend to be not as well organized. They have like the box full of the craft supplies, and you just go up and get it, and you kind of go off and do it by yourself. So it's not as structured.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. On DCL, you would normally, everybody will sort of do the craft in the same space, to your point. You know, they'll be in like the French Quarter Lounge is a great example on the Wonder. They'll, hand out all the materials. They might talk you through what you're supposed to do in order to create the thing. And then you're kind of on your own, and you don't have to stay in this space to complete the project, but all the supplies are still there. And so if you need more, tape or glue or whatever, like it's all still right there. And so people tend to sort of stay around. What about shows? Like, obviously on Disney Cruise Line, all the shows are family friendly. You can bring your toddler into the Walt Disney Theater and you have your toddler sitting there and they can make noise, and generally people won't give you dirty looks because that's just kind of the way it works on Disney Cruise Line. How did that go on Norwegian?
So I think the shows themselves are not targeted to kids as much as Disney does. So that's the main issue. I saw people bringing their kids into the shows. The main show was $1 Million Quartet. $1 Million Quartet was the name. And it was great. They did a fantastic job. But yeah, it was not for kids. We put, Sabrina went in the kids club during that show. Although she can't sit through a Disney show either. We started not taking her actually in the last one because she makes it maybe halfway through and then she complains.
Yeah. Well, Nathan at age 11 doesn't want to sit through. The only one I dragged him to on our Christmas sailings, 2 weeks of cruising, I took him to the main stage theater exactly one time. And it was to go see Moana. And I will be honest and tell you, as much as I love that show and Brian loved that show, Nathan, I could see was just kind of being a trooper. He would have been happy.
Did you ask him about it after? Because I thought I asked him about it and he said he really liked it.
I asked him about it, but I'll tell you, he asked me, I can't tell you how many times in the middle of the show, he asked me what time is it? How much time is left? Right? He is constantly, but he's not a theater. There are some kids who just love theater, right? Nathan is not one of those kids, which it breaks my heart that he is not, but he's just not. And for him, it is kind of a longer period of time and there's no, movement breaks and things like that. And so it's harder. He could sit through Seize the Adventure probably easier, which is, about a half-hour long show on Disney Cruise Line versus Moana, which is about an hour long show. But, he can sit through a 2-hour movie. It's just got to be his interests. And I don't know that musicals are. It's, I know some people with kids and Becky, you probably know people like this too. And you'll see it on Disney Cruise Line. You'll see people with 2 and 3-year-olds who will sit through an hour show. It's just very individual. Yeah.
Yeah, she also is the snake in Aladdin. She was scared of that. So there's little parts that she also gets tense with.
Yes. Well, we know a 9-year-old who gets afraid of all the stuff on the stage as well. With friends of ours who sail with us quite often. If they're listening, they'll know who I'm talking about.
She loves the Frozen movie, but did not really make it all the way through the Frozen show.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Some kids, it's live theater is not I don't know. Some kids, the animation, something about it makes them be able to hold their attention more than live theater. So it's definitely an interesting proposition. Let's talk about food, though, because I feel like that's always an important thing to think about when you're cruising with young kids. We talk about Mickey's mac and cheese all the time. We talk about the pool deck burgers and fries. There's frankly everywhere and any of the dining rooms, you can almost always order, always order burger and fries or pizza or chicken fingers, right? Those are staples. How was it on Norwegian with, food options for Sabrina?
Yeah, so they have, I think it's about 6 options. They're pretty much the same every night that you can pick. Pizza, burgers, those with peanut butter and jelly with potato chips was one of them. Trying to think what else she ordered. But yeah, basically the standard mac and cheese was another one, which she's also a big fan of mac and cheese. She alternates, I think, mac and cheese and then pizza typically.
Nice. And how's the service as far as like getting the kids' food out on the quicker side? Do they do that? I mean, we see that on Disney where, adults will order everything at once, or we'll order our appetizers, our mains, our desserts. The kids will often not order an appetizer and will just jump right to their main. And the crew, they try to bring the kids food, their main dishes either before or with our appetizers. How did that work on Norwegian?
Typically showed up around the appetizers, so the same time they were bringing the appetizers for the rest of the table. I think there's like one night where she kept asking where food was. But yeah, for the most part, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk about stateroom and what kind of stuff you can get on board. Now, you started sailing with Sabrina when she was 7 months old. So what did you have any communication with the cruise line prior to sailing about what you might need in your stateroom?
Yeah, so they offer the pack and play option for the stateroom, and we were sailing in the Haven, which is Norwegian's version of the concierge, which we decided to do because she was a baby and we thought it would just make it easier on ourselves. So I think that was pretty easy to do. I don't think they'd offer anything like the genie, the diaper genie or anything like that. I think we just did a regular, like tied them in bags and put them in the trash.
Oh, wow. That would be annoying, to be perfectly honest, just because, I mean, diapers smell. Not that the diaper genie is perfect, but it's at least a little bit, I think, better of a solution than just tying in individual bags. I mean, we do that. I remember when Nathan was little, I would carry along those bags. They're like dog poop bags that you can wrap.
Dog poop bags, yeah.
Yeah. And you wrap the dirty diaper in it, and they're usually scented, so to kind of mask the gross poopy smell of the diapers. But yeah, I mean, I guess if they're emptying your trash quite regularly, then it's probably not too bad. But that's a little bit of a bummer, I'll be honest, that they don't offer the diaper genie.
Yeah, I can't remember that being a thing. And then when I saw it on the Disney website, I was like, wow, that's pretty, wish I had done that.
Yeah. Now, what was her youngest age sailing on Disney?
She was just turned 4.
Okay, so she was a little bit older, probably out of diapers at that point. Yeah. Okay.
She did have some potty training issues. So leading up to the cruise, that was very stressful trying to get her to a spot where she could go to the kids club and I didn't have to worry about her. Yeah.
Yeah. Just incentivizing her that if she was potty trained, then she could go to the kids club. I do see that a lot.
Yeah. And also use the pool. The pool, I think, was the big motivator.
Can I rewind for one second? I just want to ask the stateroom. So what were the sleeping arrangements like in the stateroom?
For when she was 7 months, we got it was a 2-room. Okay. So there was a king size bed in one room and a pull out couch in the other room. And we put the pack and play out there. But my daughter, I had trouble getting her to sleep in any kind of crib at that age. So she was sharing the bed with us.
Okay.
Oh,
but in theory, she would have been in another room.
Yeah. Have you done any Norwegian sailings outside of the Haven with her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the most recent 2 were outside the Haven.
And what are those rooms like that you stayed in, and what were the sort of the sleeping arrangements like?
Yeah. So one of them was just a standard balcony, and then the one we were just on was it's called mini. I think it's a mini suite. It's mini clubs or something like that. Mini club suite. Okay. And it's basically the same size as a standard balcony, but the bathroom is bigger and it has a tub, which is why we went up to that one, because she's hit or miss sometimes with showers.
Yeah. And was that one a pull-out couch, or was that one did they have like a bunk, kind of like Disney does? Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a bunk, but I didn't tell her they had a bunk, so she slept on the couch part of it.
All right, there you go. And was she comfortable? Did she sleep okay?
Yeah, she's no complaints, at least. I just realized I don't think we put any of the bars on the side this last time.
No bed rail,
Yeah, bed rail. Thank you, yeah.
Well, now she's bigger. I mean, I'm not to say there are some, 4 and 5-year-olds who still use a bed rail, but if they're a restless sleeper and they roll out of the bed, they're not rolling far. It's not, if it was a bunk bed, it has to have a rail, but if it's the couch bed, it's low to the ground. We're not worried about any injury if they
Just
roll
move
off.
things away from the
exactly. Yeah. And okay, so I gotta ask, like, does she have a preference? Now she has sailed a little bit older, on Disney.
Well, hold on, wait. Before we go there, before we get to her preference, like, you're skipping to the dessert.
Sorry.
We still got to get through the main course here. I'm curious, what made you decide to jump from Norwegian to Disney? Was it just, because it's Disney and you have a kid, or like what drove that decision?
So it was a little bit of it's Disney because we have a kid, but I love Disney. And so we've always wanted to try Disney. This just gives us the excuse to do so because it is more expensive. It was a bit of a price jump. So I think that was the motivating factor. But then, of course, we did it in September 2023, and then we did it again in January 2024, and then again in August 2024. So we're kind of hooked a bit onto Disney.
Which ships for Disney have you been on?
Fantasy twice and the Magic once.
Okay. All right. And so obviously she's old enough at that point. She's in kids clubs. You didn't have to worry about the nursery on Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, although she loves going in there for the open play for some of the toys they have in there.
What does she think of the kids club on Disney? I mean, it's a totally different thing in some ways.
Yeah, so her favorite place is Andy's room on Disney. She will basically spend most of her time in there. The one in the Magic, she really likes the slide. So that was probably her favorite thing. And that was part of the reason we actually went on Magic, because she's a big slide fan. So I thought she would enjoy it.
Is she going in and staying for, like, what's the routine like on Disney Cruise Line for her with the kids clubs? Like our son, as he got older, it would be like, I'm gone, peace out, see you later. No, at the kids club, he liked to get in and out of there as he got older, because he didn't want to be like, he didn't want to confine himself in there. And then as he's gotten into Edge now, he like goes and just it's all video games all the time. But what's the routine like with her and the kids clubs in terms of, sounds like she likes to go, but does she like to stay? And what's that been like for you?
So I think when she started, she would only stay for like a little bit. She definitely liked to go after dinner, and so that was the point where we would be. She'd stay there until we came and picked her up. But there was a couple of times where she was calling to ask to be picked up, but she hasn't done that in Norwegian.
I'm curious, let me back up and just say, is between the two, well, she's in the kids club. Have you gotten to do any kind of like, sounds like she loves to go after dinner. So are you getting to do any like adult dining or adult activities on board either Norwegian or Disney? I don't know how the offering works on Norwegian. It seems like on Disney, it's like, kids club's open, kids are going to the kids club, parents are headed to, the Tube or whatever venue they're headed to. What's your experience like with that?
That's actually a good thing to talk about, because especially dining on Norwegian, you can take kids to, and they'll offer the same kids menu. So it's basically like eating in the regular dining room. But yeah, like I said, she'll eat her food and then she will get bored, and then we take her to the kids club on Norwegian. And then we did... I was nervous the first time when she was 4 going on Disney that she wouldn't stay while we were at Paolo, and we went to Remy as well. And she did. She stayed the entire time. I didn't know if they don't.
Oh, wow. And Remy's a long meal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when I was really nervous, but it worked out great and we had a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a big accomplishment. I don't think people always realize, like, we love going to Remy, but the first couple times we sailed were without Nathan. And so we were able to go to Remy. And then it was years that we could not go to Remy because the meal is a lot longer, right? We could do Paulo because you could do Paulo quicker, either for dinner or brunch. Brunch was always easier. He was a little bit more willing to go to the kids club actually during the day. But yeah, Remy was just not in the cards. And it is now again, because now he even last year when he was still in the kids club, he would go for a long enough time that it was fine. But now for sure, because now that he's an Edge kid and has all this sort of independence and freedom, he's perfectly happy to, roam the ship and go get ice cream from the pool deck, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like halfway, like during the meal, it was a little stressful because I was kept waiting for the shoe to drop for her to call or for us to have to stop. But yeah, it worked out. It was great.
Okay, so going back to Disney for a second, Sam, I almost feel like we need to get into like a versus here. So I don't want to steal your thunder for the end of the show, but I kind of want to start to ask some questions around.
We can do a versus, and then I'll do a regular rapid fire if you want, Brian.
All right. So whose kids? Well, let's not do Cruise Line just yet because I'll just give it away. But whose kids clubs does she seem to like better, Disney or Norwegian?
I think it's the last ship she's been on, because I asked her what was her favorite cruise ship, and she said it was the last one. But I also know she really likes the Disney cruise ship, so I really think it's just whatever one she's been on the most recent.
That's fair.
Love the one you're with, we like to say. You know?
I mean,
she's always happy.
Exactly.
When we've taken Nathan on Royal, he's like, "Oh, I love the kids clubs." But then we take him to Disney, he's like, "I love these kids clubs." So yeah.
Kids are fickle.
Yeah. What about in terms of like the pool area and the slides and stuff? I mean, I don't know. Is she done like Magic would have a slide, but the Fantasy would have had the aqua duck. Has she done any of that kind of stuff? And what'd she think of the pool area and like the slides and stuff is between the two?
Yeah, so her favorite thing to do is to get into the pool with her life jacket and just watch TV. So that's her absolute favorite thing. But she also loves the splash pads, and I think I think it was Nemo themed on the Fantasy splash pad, and then like I said, she spent like 2 hours on the splash pad and on the Norwegian ship. So as long as there are those things, I think the slides were better on Disney though. I think it was like the yellow Mickey Mouse slide. She really liked that one. That one was her speed. The ones on the Norwegian were a little bit steeper, but there was a slide that she could do, and so she went on that a couple times.
Well, and that's a good point, because the Magic, you have the yellow Mickey slide and then you have the aqua dunk. And the yellow Mickey slide is perfect for kids of like all ages, pretty much. I mean, they have to be under a certain height, I believe, to go on that one. But that one's tame. Aqua dunk is not I don't like it. It's intense.
None of us did that one.
Yeah. So it's not going to be for most 5-year-olds. I don't even know if they probably they do have a height limit, but I don't know, or height minimum, I should say, but I don't know what it is or what the age, what that would sort of, equate to. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. For the aqueduct, she did do that one, but I think that one was a little intense for at the time. She's 4, so I don't know if she would like it better now.
I bet give it like a year or 2 years and she'll be a big fan of the aqua duck. And then if you go on the Wish or the Treasure, the aqua mouse as well. They're not to say that they are certainly more intense than the yellow Mickey slide, but they are not like the aqua dunk level of intensity. Yeah.
Okay, so stepping aside from pool deck, what about like activities on board? Is she into the family activities on Disney? Is that something that does Disney win out there because it has perhaps a little bit more to do on board?
I think so, because she loves doing the pictures with the characters. She loves princesses. She's like obsessed with princesses. So I think that really pushes it for her. In addition, I don't think we did too many activities beyond just the character meet and greets and the kids clubs and the pool deck.
How'd she do with the characters?
Great. She walks up. She's good at posing. She loves taking her picture. I'm a bit concerned, actually.
I'm a bit concerned.
That's funny. Have you tried Bibbidi Boppidi Boutique with her on Disney?
Yeah, so we did that on our first cruise, and we did the whole thing where she got a dress, she got Tiana's dress, and she got the whole thing.
And your wallet was empty after.
And my wallet was empty. Yeah, she loved it. She's been wearing that dress. She was wearing it this morning. Actually, she does a lot of costume changes throughout the day.
I understand why you're concerned.
Yeah.
You've got a little princess on your hands.
Yeah, she's very dramatic too. So,
what about food? So, it's between Norwegian and Disney. Does she seem to have a preference around food at dining times, or just generally food across the ships?
No, I don't think she didn't seem to have any kind of preference for the Disney mac and cheese over the Norwegian mac and cheese. But she's pretty easy to please. So she's not as picky, I guess, as some kids maybe. We went one time on Disney you know how they give you vegetables for the Disney. So that's nice. I don't think there was any vegetables in the Norwegian kids' meals, but she'll dip them in ketchup and she'll eat them. So that's good.
It's like 3 vegetables, by the way. It's like literally, when I say 3 vegetables, I mean like 3 pieces. There's like 1 piece of broccoli, 1 piece of cauliflower, and 1 piece of carrot on every single plate.
Yeah, but she was trading with, we went with a friend, and their son was trading, giving all his vegetables. And so she ended up with 6 pieces.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Nathan
practically
will
a crudité, Sam. It's practically a crudité.
Nathan will also, he will eat all 3 of the vegetables. And then if somebody else is giving up their broccoli, he will eat somebody else's broccoli as well. Because he is also a vegetable. I mean, not all vegetables, but like the 3 vegetables that they give you are not like they're probably the 3 easiest vegetables, I feel like. So.
But it is nice to have at least that option.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered food. What about, let me just back up and start asking you some questions. Like, which cruise line do you prefer from a kids and family standpoint?
So it's definitely Disney. Disney just makes it a little bit easier to travel, I think, with the family and with kids. But Norwegian, so I was a bit worried when we went last in 2023. December 2023, when we had that whole kids club, just run on the kids club where there was no room. Because there was nothing to do. Everything was inside. The weather was so terrible outside. And so that was terrible. So I would not recommend a cold weather cruise on Norwegian with kids. But then our last cruise in December out of New Orleans, that was fantastic. It was warm weather. She was able to go on the pool deck. Kids clubs was available. So it was perfectly fine. But Disney has all the meet and greets with the characters that she loves, and just like the theming. We went on the Magic, and she loved the Rapunzel themed restaurant. Just things like that, and of course the kids clubs are very well themed.
What about staterooms for you as between the 2 cruise lines? I mean, Disney is kind of known as like, this is a family setup for our staterooms. Did you find any daylight between the 2 cruise lines on the staterooms in terms of their usability as a family?
Yeah, I think because they have the standard bathtub. That is really helpful for young kids. And then the curtain that separates the bed from the couch or the bunk bed, that is also very helpful, because then they can put them to bed. It can be dark over there, and you can also be getting ready for bed and not disturb her. So that was great.
Yeah. And I mean, the curtain doesn't prevent noise, obviously. So it's not like the perfect solution, but I think I totally agree with you. As far as I know, particularly when Nathan was younger, we would, put him to bed. At least he would be in the dark side of the room, and we could still, like you said, be getting ready for bed. We could be reading in bed. We probably couldn't be watching TV because obviously the noise from the TV, but we could be watching something on our phone, or we could be reading or just getting ourselves ready for bed without kind of disturbing him by having some lights on. Yeah. Which is a really nice feature. And then with the bathtub, I just want to put the caveat out there. Not all Disney staterooms, but most Disney staterooms have bathtubs. There are, like I said, there are a couple of exceptions. And of course, accessible rooms do not have bathtubs at all. They always have, the shower so that a wheelchair could roll in. But I think there are a handful of other staterooms that do not have bathtubs, but the vast majority of them do. It is the exception to the rule when one does not. So, and the split bath, I think, is also really nice. Now, again, not every not all the inside staterooms have split baths on Disney, but most of the rooms on Disney have the split bath. And for those who have not been on a Disney cruise and are listening for the first time, a split bath is one where the shower bathtub is in one little room with a sink and a vanity, and then the toilet and a sink and vanity are in another little room. So you have, instead of having only one sink, you have 2 sinks. And so while somebody is pooping, somebody else can be getting ready, or when somebody is showering, somebody else can be getting ready, so that you have a little bit. I think it helps, particularly with families. It also helps, frankly, for even when it's just a couple sailing.
Yeah, if only they could have two the toilets, because she always decides that she needs it when someone else is using it.
That's such a kid thing to do. Nathan does the same.
Now, you've tried Norwegian. I want to step back. You've tried you sailed Norwegian's Haven. We were supposed to sail Norwegian to Alaska, and I had booked us in the Haven. And then I started reading online, just lots of back and forth from people about whether kids should be in the Haven or not. Did you find anyone like resistant to, you having your daughter there in the Haven with you, or did you feel out of place or anything like that?
No, we weren't the only ones with the baby, actually. So there's a Haven has a restaurant that you can eat at, and we do basically a lot of the meals there. And there was another couple with a kid or a baby who was about the same age. So we didn't feel like it was weird at all. And then they have the private pool. We were on the Escape, and they have the Haven has this private pool area. And so we bring her there. We had a little portable jumper thing that we put her in. We just hang out there, and no one ever said anything.
But she couldn't go in the pool because she was in diapers. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was pool adjacent.
Yeah, pool adjacent. I like that.
Now, what about, have you sailed concierge at all on Disney?
I have not. The price has been, yeah.
No, that's totally fair. Put it in perspective, Norwegian and Haven is a lot less expensive than Disney Cruise Line's concierge product. And to be fair, I'm not sure there's a huge amount of daylight between the two offerings. And in some ways, Norwegian may have a better offering, but that's good to know. What other tips would you give for folks is if they're balancing out, because look, if you want to go to Alaska, Norwegian sails out of Seattle instead of Vancouver. I think they might also sail out of Vancouver. They tend to be maybe a little less expensive than Disney. Maybe not. Alaska's not always a fair comparison, but I think they're less expensive than Disney going to Alaska. They're certainly less expensive than Disney on many, many other itineraries. And we've heard good things about Norwegian. So how would you sort of think through the decision if someone came to you and said, look, I'm going to go sail my family, we've got young kids, help them think through that decision. What are the key points that you would think through as between booking Norwegian or Disney? Is it just price, or is there other factors?
I think price, and then also the itineraries. They're a lot more diverse than Disney. So that's the one thing I would change for Disney is have a little bit more variety in where they go. But yeah, so I think price and itinerary would be the top things. And you can have a perfectly fun trip on Norwegian. It just won't have that little extra bit.
The extra magic.
Extra magic, yes. That's right.
Yeah, that pixie dust. That's the thing is I think we try to tell people because, we've been obviously on Royal, and even before we had Nathan many years ago, we had went on Celebrity. We have had a really nice time. And we, of course, recently went on Virgin. We've had a really nice time on all of the lines. I honestly can't think of any of the cruises as being bad. We've had actually, I am sure that there are bad cruise experiences out there. We've had a few people on our show to talk about them even, but I don't think that, I wouldn't say, if you go on a different cruise line, you're just not going to have a good time. I think that would be an incorrect statement. But I do think there's still something about the service level, the magic, the pixie dust that you get on Disney, like you spoke about with the characters with your daughter, right? That doesn't exist on other cruise lines. And so it's okay for the trade-off on price to say, okay, on this cruise, I'm going to sail on a different cruise line, and I'm okay without that extra bit of pixie dust. And I'm still going to have a great vacation. And then there are times where you may sort of make a different decision and decide to splurge because you really want to feel all that magic.
Yeah, exactly. We had, it was a family cruise, this last one. So we had everybody from my husband's mom, dad, stepmom, his brother, sister. And so it was great to be able to do a cruise with the entire family, and everyone could afford it because it was a little bit cheaper, which I don't think would have been the case with the Disney cruise.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Another consideration. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Well, Becky, is there anything we've missed that you want to be sure to highlight from your time out there cruising on Norwegian or Disney?
Well, So I'll say that Sabrina did, my daughter did take a little bit of Disney magic with her on it. When we got to the ship, there's a mermaid on the side of the ship that we went on the getaway. And the first thing she said when she saw it was that, oh, that's Ariel. And so she kept putting Disney onto the Norwegian experience.
Oh, that's really cute. Kids will create pixie dust and magic in their own imaginations. And I love that. Good for her.
Amazing. Well, Becky, I think we've reached that point in the show where even though I've subjected you to my own little kind of rapid fire here at the end, it's time to hand you back over to Sam for some arbitrary questions, some arbitrary rules, a dash of judgment, or the round we know as rapid fire. So Sam, take it away.
All right, Becky, I'm going to ask you a couple of Disney favorites and then, of course, your Disney Cruise Line favorites. And, of course, you can pick from the Fantasy and the Magic, the two ships that you have been on. You cannot pick from the Wonder, the Treasure, the Wish, the Dream. You got to stick to the ships that you've been on. But let's start with, who is your favorite Disney character?
Mulan.
Love it. What is your favorite Disney movie?
It might be Mulan as well.
Yeah, I mean,
the animated one version.
Yeah, if you're going to pick Mulan, you got to pick Mulan as the movie too.
Emperor's New Groove is good. Like, there's a lot of
there's a lot of good ones. Yeah. All right, favorite song, Disney song. Obviously.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I don't know what my favorite song is because I like different ones depending on my mood.
Okay.
Yes, I couldn't decide.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on to the next question. Favorite Disney Cruise Line stage show? And I'm remembering you've been on the Magic and the Fantasy, so you have a couple of good options.
So it's going to be controversial, but I think it's the show that's on the Fantasy, not Aladdin. It's the
not Frozen, not Aladdin. You're gonna pick Believe. Oh my God! I'm sorry, you're gonna face some judgment there, Becky.
I knew it was going to. But we haven't seen some of the other ones, so
okay. Well, you had Tangled as a choice on the Magic, and you have Frozen as a choice on the Fantasy, Becky. Okay, you can pick Believe. All right, I'm going to sit here and judge you a little bit. All right, well, let's talk about your favorite onboard activity.
So I think maybe trivia.
Yeah, nice. Any particular trivia?
I like all of them. I think the best one I was at was some of the music trivia.
Nice, yeah. All right, favorite rotational dining.
Sorry, I have to think about it. I think the Rapunzel's table, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Rapunzel's Royal Table. That's a great one. Favorite space to relax on a Disney ship?
I really like Soul Cat Lounge on the Magic.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. All right, have you done Palo or just Remy now?
Yes, we did both. We've done both. And we've also done the brunch for both as well.
Awesome. Okay, then Remy versus Palo. Which one?
Remy.
Wow, love that. And dinner versus brunch?
Brunch, actually.
Oh, interesting. That's a little controversial.
I think it's so. I don't really like strong cheeses, and there's certain things in the dinner that I don't like as much, and so it was paying extra for some courses that I wasn't as big a fan of. I will say that I had one of the best things I've ever eaten was in Remy for dinner. It was a tomato appetizer course.
Yes.
It was the most amazing
with the
thing.
tomato water. And I know exactly what you're talking about if it's that one. Yeah. It comes with it's like a tomato pie and tomato water. And it's like,
yeah, it was like a bunch of tomato. Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah. That is a really fantastic dish. All right. Which one is your favorite ship between the Magic and the Fantasy?
The Fantasy.
Wow.
Yeah. I forgot my daughter also really liked the detective game on the Fantasy.
Midship Detective Agency it's a fantastic offering. It's hard to pick, I think, between the Dream class and the Magic class. There's so many good things about both. So you have no judgment from me on that answer. Okay, my last question. Bucket list cruise. You can go anywhere in the world and it's going to be on a Disney ship. It doesn't even have to be someplace that Disney Cruise Line currently goes. Becky, where are you going?
I'm going to cheat because it's going to be a world cruise on Disney.
I love it. I love it.
But aside from that, Norway.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah. No, you can cheat though. The world cruise is a great answer. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Becky, for joining us and chatting with us and giving us sort of compare contrast between Disney Cruise Line and Norwegian Cruise Line with a particular focus on kids and family cruising. What do you have booked next? Where are you sailing to next?
So it was going to be the Celebrity Ascent in April. So trying another ship to see how it goes. But we've did a spur of the moment booking for the Wish in March. So
oh,
that'll
fantastic.
Be the next
yeah. Oh, that'll be, you know what? I have a prediction that the Wish is going to be Sabrina's favorite ship because it is the perfect ship for any little princess.
That was part of the reason we were like, we need to get on that ship before she gets too old.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, as Sam said, Becky, thank you so much for taking some time to spend some time with us and our audience and for sharing your experience sailing with little ones out there on Norwegian and Disney. And we just really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.